The Dirt with me, Mike Howell, an economics podcast where I present the down and dirty agronomic science to help grow crops and bottom lines. Inspired by eKonomics.com, farming's go-to informational resource, I'm here to break down the latest crop nutrition research, news, and issues, helping farmers make better business decisions through actionable insights. Let's dig in. Well, hello again, everyone. Welcome back to The Dirt. I was recently in Oklahoma for the National Land and Range Judging Contest. During that event, I had the privilege of meeting Miss JanLee Rowlett at the awards ceremony that night. She gave a presentation and talked about some exciting work going on with the Department of Agriculture there in Oklahoma. We have JanLee with us today, and JanLee, welcome to The Dirt.
Thank you. Appreciate the chance to get to join you.
If you would, take just a few moments and introduce yourself to our listeners and let them know what you do there in Oklahoma.
Okay, very good. Well, like you said, Mike, my name's JanLee Rowlett. I work as Deputy Commissioner here at the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry. So get to work with our Secretary of Ag here in the state, Blaine Arthur, and help lead our team here at the Department of Ag to do lots of work on behalf of Oklahoma farmers and ranchers. We have kind of a dual role in the state in that we are a regulatory agency. So we are charged by our state legislature to make sure that we're following all the rules to protect our natural resources and make sure that consumers are getting what they're paying for. So we certainly have a regulatory responsibility, but we also balance that with our work to try to really promote Oklahoma agriculture and make sure that our farmers and ranchers also have access to new opportunities and a chance to develop new markets if they want to be able to market their products around, the state or the country or even the world. So an interesting kind of combination and balance of a couple different things that we do here, but we really try to take as much of a farmer-friendly, producer-friendly approach to our role as we can and do whatever we can to support our ag industry here in the state to make sure that future generations have a farm or ranch to come back to if they want to, and that Oklahoma agriculture can continue to thrive in the future. So I'm definitely a product of the ag industry and youth development programs. I'm not a native Oklahoman, but came up through 4-H and FFA, and credit those organizations and the opportunities that they gave me with a lot of the things that I've gotten to do. So definitely have a love for agriculture personally and just have had a chance to learn a lot more and grow that over the last several years as I've gotten to work here at the Oklahoma Department of Ag.
Very good. And I echo those sentiments. I grew up in 4-H and FFA and did a lot, got the opportunity to travel across the country and see a lot of things. And quite honestly, if it wasn't for the 4-H program, I probably wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today.
I can say with pretty high level of certainty that I would not be sitting here if it weren't for those organizations. And like you said, they definitely pave a path for a lot of kids, and I feel lucky to be one of those. So.
Well, JanLee, one of the things you talked about in your presentation at the awards program a couple of weeks ago was that Oklahoma is celebrating the Year of Youth in Agriculture. Tell us a little bit about that and how that got started.
Yeah, we're very excited. Earlier this year, right at the beginning of 2025, Governor Stitt declared 2025 as the Year of Youth in Ag in Oklahoma. And we're excited to spend all of this year. We've done this the last several months, joining partners like 4-H and FFA and our ag commodity groups and other organizations across the state that understand the importance of making sure that those opportunities continue to exist for kids that have an interest in the ag industry. We joined all those partners and just bringing more of an awareness, hopefully, to those opportunities, why it's important, the role that agriculture plays and those organizations play in developing leaders, not just for the ag industry, but really for our communities and our state, and celebrating that and just sharing that story more broadly. It really came about, it was an idea that Secretary Arthur had personally, and as we visited more, thought that this would be a perfect opportunity to just shine an extra light on that. We talk a lot in ag about we have to tell our story. We have to help consumers understand what we do and open the farm gate and let people in. And we work really hard to do that. But part of that is helping share the story of what that means for the next generation, what being involved in your family's farm, and that can look like so many different things. We know that it does. Sometimes that's a show project, and sometimes it is, being on the combine the whole month of June, helping with wheat harvest or working in your family's meat processing plant. It can look like so many different things, but really I think what we want to make sure people understand, and people that aren't as familiar with agriculture and with those organizations know, that it's just a great way to develop young people and develop leaders for the next generation and just help make our state a better place to live and work long into the future.
Well, I really appreciate you talking about that. Appreciate these young people as well. You know, they are our future. If we don't have these young people, who's going to pick up the torch when we decide to retire?
Absolutely.
That seems like a long time down the road, but every day it's getting closer and closer. So
That's right. We talk a lot about our farmers in Oklahoma, and I think this is true across the country, are getting older every year. The average age of farmers continues to increase, and we have to provide opportunities for young people to come back, and they hopefully want to do that. But I think if we can help them see what those opportunities are and support them in that decision and make them prepared to do that, we'll all be better for it. So that's one of our goals.
So talk a little bit about how someone is selected to be recognized in the program.
So it's really open. If you check out our social media, you'll see, I think every Wednesday we highlight a different young person in ag, and just try to tell their stories. There's, to be honest, not really a selection process. We are just gathering all of the good, inspiring stories, and there are so many of them from across our state, and we want to tell as many of them as we can. So we are doing that on our social media platforms. We've invited our partners in this project. I mentioned 4-H and FFA and our ag commodity groups and others, really anybody that wants to be a part, to do the same. So we're seeing other groups kind of pick up the torch too, and continue to share stories from within their own industries or their own groups. It's really open. We have some information on our website for anybody that might be interested to be able to use the logo that we've developed and kind of brand whatever programs they want to do. That's really been our goal from the beginning, is to just make it as easy for other groups and organizations to grab onto this project and join us in that as we possibly can. So it's really open. We just hope that people will use the opportunity to tell more of the stories. If you know a young person that has a good story to tell or has done impressive things, which we know, again, there are so many of those, we invite people to share those stories with us, and we want to just elevate that message and tell as many of those as we possibly can.
So you've been doing this for several months now. Do any young people stand out? Any stories that you want to share here today?
They're all so different. I think that was one of our goals in the beginning, is especially here in Oklahoma, and I think given both Secretary Arthur and I both have a pretty strong livestock background, so immediately those are the kids that we start to think of just because we know a lot of them personally. But it's so far beyond that. There are so many, wonderful stories of success in the show ring and at the Oklahoma Youth Expo, and those absolutely need to be told, but it goes so far beyond that too. There are kids that haven't necessarily had those opportunities, or maybe that's just not what they were interested in, but they really have a passion for row crop farming and are going back and implementing new practices on their family operation that they learn about through their involvement in some of these organizations. Or I mentioned meat processing. I mean, there's so many different sectors and ways that kids are involved, and they're not all the stories that we hear about all the time. We talk about those that win speech contests or win their county fair, the stories that get told, and that's so much a part of this, and we want to elevate those too. But there are others out there that we don't always hear about. So we're trying to find those inspiring stories that really tell all the value that comes from being raised in production agriculture and just continuing that and taking an interest in, as young people, get older and learn more and have more responsibility on their operation, when maybe it's their family or maybe it's a neighbor and they've kind of taken on some responsibility on their own. We want to tell those stories too. So kind of everything's on the table. We want to hear them all, and we want to share as many of them as we can.
JanLee, you kind of mentioned something there, and it reminded me that a lot of these young people are interested in other things. There's so much out there that grabs their attention, and you may not want to be out in the field sweating or being in the barn feeding cows all day and things like that. But in agriculture, there is such a broad area. There's so much that somebody could do. We need accountants. We need attorneys. We need people to go through the taxes. So just because you may not be interested in production agriculture and being out there getting your hands dirty, there's still a place for you in agriculture if that's where you want to be.
1,000%, yes. And that is a huge part of this project too, is just letting people know that it might not look like what you think that it looks like. It's such a broad field, and each day there are new opportunities, from like IT needs with the evolution of AI and technology as it's used in agriculture, all the way to some of those things that you mentioned, attorneys and tax preparers and specialists and so many different things. Agriculture is so broad that there really is a place for everybody, and we need all of those different skill sets. One thing that Secretary Arthur started when she came on board here at the Department of Ag in 2019 as secretary was developing a group called the Agriculture Youth Council, which has been a small group. Every year we've selected about 15 high school seniors to spend their school year. Once a month they have a session. Usually those are based here out of the Department of Ag, but just a chance for them to kind of get some exposure to a different sector of ag that they maybe weren't familiar with before. And the purpose of that group has kind of been twofold: to expose them to new opportunities, but also hear back from kind of that age group, I guess, about what are they looking for, what would help them go back to rural Oklahoma, what do they want in a rural community or in a job as they look down the road. And it's been eye-opening to see, I think, hopefully for those students that have participated. I think it has. We've seen, heard stories about kids that what they thought was going to be their career plan has totally changed because they met somebody through this program, and that really changed the trajectory of their college career or what they did after high school, and has landed them in a position now that they maybe would have never considered before, and so much value in that. But for us, hearing from those kids, what can we be doing now to help them go back to those communities and be successful and raise a family there and have their kids be in school one day in these small rural towns, I think that is really what Oklahoma, for sure. We're such a rural ag state, but so many other states are as well. And that's really kind of what our state is built upon. And we have to keep those rural communities thriving. And that starts with having kids consider a career in agriculture or that will take them back to those rural communities. So this is one little piece of such a bigger picture, but something that we're really excited to be focusing on this year.
Well, we really appreciate you focusing on the young people. We've mentioned that they're our future, and we need to do everything we can to help keep them interested in agriculture so we can be productive down the road. I know you work with a lot of other programs, and you've talked about Oklahoma agriculture and how important it is to the state. Can you expand on agriculture in Oklahoma a little bit? Tell our listeners what type of crops you grow there,
Yeah.
the livestock industry, things like that.
Yeah, I think, so many people, and I mentioned I'm not from Oklahoma originally, and I would have put myself in this category too. I think when people outside of our state and even here think about Oklahoma ag, they think about cattle and wheat. And we certainly have a lot of both of those, but we are a very diverse ag state. I have gotten a chance to travel across the state over the last few years and learn so much about all the different crops and things that we produce here, from northeast Oklahoma to the southwest and vice versa, from the panhandle to southeast Oklahoma, everything from poultry to pork to certainly wheat and cotton and cattle, to timber in southeast Oklahoma. Very diverse. I think our geographic location and our climate both allow us to be pretty diverse in the things that we do. So we have a lot of variety in the things that we're able to produce and grow here in the state. Something that I have been, continually surprised by is the growing food industry here in the state. So we have a program here at the Department of Ag, Made in Oklahoma, just as our state branded program. And there's a coalition of food and beverage companies that have come together and have a really good example of what public-private partnership can look like, and that they invest and the state invests in really just promoting Oklahoma products. And that's been a huge success for our state too. So everything, literally from conception at the farm level, if you're talking about livestock or planting the seed in the ground, all the way through to kind of making final processing of a food product that's ready to hit the grocery store shelves and be purchased by a consumer and fed to somebody's family. It all happens right here in Oklahoma. Very diverse state, one that I feel lucky to get to be a part of and get to work with our producers here.
Before I made my first trip to Oklahoma, I had that same misconception. It was cattle and wheat, and I've been to Oklahoma a bunch of times, more times than I can count now. And most of those trips were out there with land judging teams in the past. I used to coach a lot of land judging teams, but we would get away from the city a little bit and try to get out and go every direction. And there's a lot to see and do around there, a lot of agriculture. And I did not realize that Oklahoma grew cotton until I went out there the first time. I'm from Mississippi, and I thought cotton had to be grown in the southeast, and Oklahoma just seems a little bit away from that.
Yep.
But I know cotton has really picked up the last few years out in that area.
Yes, huge crop, especially for the southwest part of our state, but it seems like it's grown more north than I would have even expected to. So yes, huge industry for us as well.
Well, JanLee, we've talked a lot about the youth program that you've been talking about. Are there any other programs going on in Oklahoma that you want to mention while we have you today?
There are a lot of different things that we focus on. I think when I kind of step back and look at the big picture, and this program is certainly a part of this, I mentioned, we really want what's best for Oklahoma agriculture, and in so many ways that is so linked with our rural communities. We talked a lot about workforce challenges in the state over the last few years, and that's not a secret to anybody in agriculture. It's hard to find people to do jobs kind of at every level. So in thinking about how to solve that, kind of zero down into a few more specific areas that we know we have severe shortages right now. Certainly at the farm level, we need more available workers. But when we think about kind of looking down the road, we know that we need rural and large animal veterinarians. So we've been working on that. We need more ag teachers. We need more 4-H and extension educators. So those have kind of been the three areas that we've really started to focus, and we've made some great strides, I think. Very supportive legislature and other partners in the state that also see the need and the importance of filling those gaps. I mentioned the large and food animal veterinarian piece. That's something that we've really focused on here over the last several months in working with our livestock industry and also current practitioners in our vet school and again our legislature to just make sure that we are as well equipped as we can to be producing veterinarians that will go out and serve those rural communities and serve our livestock industry, because so much depends on their availability, and that's gotten more and more difficult over the last several years as that industry has kind of evolved, and there are fewer practitioners that are out there and able and willing to do that work, and competing, of course, with kind of the more companion animal side, and it makes a lot of sense as to why somebody that's coming out of vet school would want to go into a mixed animal practice or a small animal practice, but we just have such a need for large animal practitioners that are specifically interested in, kind of food animal work. So we've been working on that as well. And we're encouraged by some of the strides that we're making and just, looking at kind of assessing that challenge and putting some real numbers to that, and then starting to chip away at some solutions that we hope long-term will really help alleviate that problem for our state.
Well, JanLee, I really appreciate you taking time to visit with us today and share your story about everything that's going on there in Oklahoma. Listeners, we appreciate you tuning in, and we want to remind you to hang around for just a couple of moments, and we'll be right back with segment 2. Farming isn't farming without questions, and now there's a place to go for answers. At eKonomics, an entire team of agronomists is waiting and ready to help for free. No question is too big or too small. Visit Nutrien-economics.com and submit your question with the Ask an Agronomist feature. Listeners, welcome back for segment 2. As you know by now, segment 2 is where we ask one of our agronomists a question of the week dealing with agronomy and soil fertility. Today, we have Dr. Carl Wyant back in the studio with us. Carl, today's question is a little bit unusual. We'll throw it out here and see what you have to say about it. But our question of the week is, what is the most unusual thing you've seen in the world of soil fertility in your desert environment out there?
Yeah, to the listener that might not be familiar with my sort of journey into agriculture, I have a desert soil scientist, and then I joined ag retail and made my way through that system. So lots of crops that, folks just are way off a lot of people's radar, but we can grow them in the climate down here. I just add water, right, with our irrigation. Got a lot of sunlight, got some great soils, great alluvial soils to grow in. So probably the strangest thing I've ever seen, I went to a dragon fruit farm one time. If you go to certain coffee shops, you'll see they're selling like this bright fluorescent pink caffeine drink, and that's called dragon fruit something or other. So that fruit grows on this strange cactus looking thing, and you grow it, and then they harvest the fruit at the end of the year, but it's like, I don't know, if you were to imagine some sort of alien planet farm, that's what it would look like. So just get on your favorite search engine and just type in dragon fruit plant. You'll see what I'm talking about. Took some research, took some extension visits, but we got a plan figured out, and we made those dragon fruits happy and got a good yield. So way off the beaten path for most folks' adventure in agronomy.
I don't think I've ever seen a dragon fruit plant, Carl. The basic principles of soil fertility, it doesn't matter what the crop is. So glad you were able to work that one out and figure out a plan for the producers. Carl, we appreciate you taking time to visit with us today and answer our agronomy questions. Listeners, we hope you enjoy this segment. And if you have questions about anything we've talked about today, you can always visit our website. That's Nutrien-economics.com. eKonomics.com. Until next time, this has been Mike Howell with The Dirt. Hey guys, if you like what you heard today, do us a favor and share this podcast with someone else. It could be your neighbor, your friend, your crop advisor, or whoever you think would enjoy it. Your support helps ensure future episodes, so please like, subscribe, share, and rate the show wherever you're listening from.